We certainly don't say, oh, ho, ho, you are so wonderful. Come and sit in my lap. Give me a hug, eat cookies. And so what they learn is, when I perform well, up to the standards and expectations of different people, teachers in school, standardized tests, I am worthy of love. At those times, Mom loves me, and I sit in her lap and she showers me with hugs and kisses. And when I don't, she doesn't. सभी अपने mobiles जरा silent पे रखिएगा. धन्यवाद. When I do well on the exam, she loves me. I'm worthy of her love. When I don't, I am not. Or even something just as simple as every day. The child cleans up their room. Mom says, oh, you are Mama's good boy. The room's a mess. She says, you are a bad girl. Messy girl. Bad boy, messy boy, good girl. How frequently do we say this to our children? And what they learn is my goodness, my worthiness here on planet Earth, my worthiness of love, of hugs, of sitting on mother's lap or dad's lap, my worthiness of appreciation is dependent upon what I do. My room is clean, my clothes are folded and put away. I'm worthy of love. They're not, I am not. I think the most critical thing to teach the children is, it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter what grades you get on exams. It doesn't matter if your room is clean or dirty. Yes, obviously we need to learn to take care of our things. Things cost money. Things are produced by others. Things are using resources. We must learn to take care of them. We must learn to take care of them. But that's not my worthiness. Yes, we must try our best in school. We must try our best sincerely. We've been given skills and abilities. We must use them. Do our best. But that has nothing to do with who we are. Who we are is divine, which means an A or an F. A messy room, a clean room. A star athlete. The guy who struck out or the girl who struck out in the most important inning of the ball game. It doesn't matter. Whatever we do, whatever we look like, we're fat, we're thin, we're dark, we're fair, we're athletic, we're not athletic. We're good in school, we're not good in school. That in all of these circumstances, we are divine. And we are worthy. More than worthy. Of occupying our place here on planet Earth. We are worthy of love, worthy of grace. I think that's the most important lesson, because otherwise we grow up, all of us, feeling like what I do in the workplace, in the home, in my social arena, that determines my worthiness. We grow up believing, in order to be worthy of love, I must succeed. So when we don't do well in work, when we're not the best, we don't get the corner office, we don't get the promotion, somebody's smarter than we are, not only do we feel badly about work, but we feel badly about us. It's not just the project wasn't accepted. It's I am a worthless human being. Because that's what we were taught. When we feel like we fail at something, or we put on a few extra pounds, or we lose too much weight, or we don't look the way we want to, we feel unworthy of love. It's not a matter of just, oh, I should pay attention to what I eat. But we actually feel unworthy of love based on what we look like, based on how we're achieving what we're doing. And that didn't come to us just from the air. It's what we were given as children. And of course, it's not only from the parents. We get it in commercials and advertising. We get it everywhere. But parents can help children understand who you are is divine. Child comes home with an F. Make sure you give them a big hug and a space on your lap. Help them figure out, maybe they need tutoring. Maybe they need to stop watching TV for 6 hours when they get home from school every day. But not that they're not worthy of love. Make sure that what we are teaching our children is that who they are is full, is whole, is perfect, is divine. And yeah, there's a whole bunch of values and ethics and ways to move through the world in our, what we call sanskaras, impressions, or even just in terms of being part of a positive, civilized society. But that doesn't change who they are. And if we can raise a generation of children who know whatever I look like, whatever my grades are, however I'm succeeding or not succeeding, I am the divine. We'll raise a generation of children who are connected to that divine and then are able to be courageous in their life choices, in their vocations, in their professions, and are able to then be creative in actually bringing about the types of solutions and societies and world that we need to live in. If anyone here has a question, yes.
Especially since the past 3 years, the world is going through a lot of changing coronavirus, then fighting among the countries. The future kind of looks bleak and dark. What are your thoughts and how can we stop from that future?
Beautiful. So, yes, COVID was a tragedy, an emergency. But as we've been saying from the beginning, it was also an opportunity to emerge and see. An emergency, yes, and an opportunity to emerge and see, meaning to emerge from the ignorance we were living in. We still are tragically, but somewhat less, in an illusion of separation. That somehow we've believed I can be safe over here, healthy over here, even as you are suffering and dying over there. Well, COVID came in and removed that illusion. If you're sick over there, unless I want to spend the rest of my life in the 4 walls of my house, behind a mask, 6 feet from everyone, having to order my groceries online, well, I need you to be healthy for me to be healthy. I need you to be safe for me to be safe. It wiped away all illusions. I mean, before COVID, did we really care What people were eating in meat markets in central China? Well, did it really matter to us? We might hear someone say, oh, they ate this, they ate that. And we'd say, ugh. But it wasn't like a big thing. Nobody felt like that was something that impacted them. Now we know what everyone's eating, where they're eating it, how they're eating it, actually ripples out all over the world. And that's not just the meat market in central China. That was the example COVID gave us. But our eating habits, if we're eating non-vegetarian food, you can be sure the ripple impact of your diet is rippling into all across so much of the world where people are dying of starvation without enough food. So COVID really gave us that opportunity to emerge from ignorance, emerge from separation, and to see. So beautiful. Here we were in lockdown, government-imposed lockdown for 4 or 5 months. It was so quiet, so clean. I don't think Ganga's been that clean in hundreds of years. The elephants were coming out of the jungle and bathing in Ganga. The CCTV cameras caught elephants at Harkiporti and Haridwar, Socho. Nobody was there. The animals all came out of the forest. It was beautiful. I mean, we missed you all, but it was beautiful. Carbon emissions were down. The air was clean. There was no pollution. And it made us realize without any doubt whatsoever, we are the problem. Because before COVID, there was, most of us realized we are the problem, but there was some vested interests, shall we say, in some other sectors who wanted to pretend we were not the problem. Industry wasn't the problem, transportation wasn't the problem, our lifestyles weren't the problem. Well, this was as clear-cut of a scientific experiment as you could have possibly ever imagined. All at once, everything stopped. And what happened? The air got cleaner, the water got cleaner, carbon emissions were down. So it taught us we are the problem, and therefore we are the solution. And so while the deaths were horrific and tragic, and I wish that there had been some way to prevent them, the ultimate lesson from COVID, I think, has actually been a really powerful one. I think people now take their health a lot more seriously. I think people recognize the preciousness of life. It was this big fat slap in the face to everybody of like, oh, you thought that was important? Well, now your mail could kill you. Right? Remember those first few weeks of COVID? Nobody would touch their mail. I mean, we were terrified. Some letter came, was like, oh, I don't want to touch. Nobody wanted to touch anything. Suddenly we realized what's important. Our loved ones, our life, helping others. And so actually, ultimately, I think it's been a really powerful lesson. So to me, the future, I feel very bright about it because I have faith in humanity. It's not a sure thing. It's not a sure thing. Now, of course, that is with an attachment to our present existence in these forms as humans. If we let go of that attachment, well then, the earth is going to survive. Regardless of climate change, regardless of what happens, Mother Earth will survive. It's us who won't. So as long as we are attached to our current existence as human beings who depend upon certain amount of oxygen in the air, certain temperature range, well then we better be careful. But I've got a lot of faith in humanity. And I actually think that that which is happening, whether it's COVID, whether it's an absolutely unwarranted, tragic, horrific war, it's making people rise up. Remember in the last few years, in addition to all of this, as we were being catalyzed, you could say, in the pandemic, all of the movements around equality, whether equality of color, equality of race, equality of gender, all of these huge movements have started coming all over the world in fantastic ways. The ability to discriminate against others on the basis of their color, their race, their religion, their gender, their sexual orientation. Suddenly there have been huge movements against that. Catalyzed maybe by us recognizing the fragility of life in the pandemic, I don't know. But it's been an incredibly powerful and positive time. I think we're looking at things in entirely new ways. And I think that's a great thing. I think we are realizing that a lot that we used to take for granted, we can't take for granted anymore. So I think the future is actually really bright. I just pray that we act fast to preserve this very fragile ecosystem that we require for our ongoing spiritual evolution. But I think it will happen. We're seeing it every day. We're seeing so many people come forward for peace, for the environment, for equality, for others. And it's beautiful to see. And remember, you are part of that future. Your thoughts, your actions, your words, your social media posts, each one of us is creating that future. It's not that we sit here and the future is just going to happen. We are creating it. And so it's up to each of us. We are the future. When we talk about something being predestined, well, right now is the pre of tomorrow's destiny. What our destiny will be a year from now, 10 years from now, an hour from now, we are writing it right now. So let us co-create the world we know we're supposed to live in. Because we can, if we do it together. Are there any other questions? Yes.
Namaste. Namaste Sadhviji, Namaste Pujya Swamiji. My mentor is Raja Chowdhury, so he definitely recommended me to come here. I do have a question. I'm here with my nephews. My sister recently passed away suddenly, just 2.5 weeks ago, so I had to rush from Boston. She was very young, it was very sudden. So what do you advise when it comes to cope up with the fact that the physical aspect is not there? But, you know, she and I was very close and we had a lot of desires and a lot of pilgrimages to do. So although, you know, I'm very spiritually involved, what do you advise to be able to get that energy and direction? And your blessings, please. Thank you.
we'll take this as our last question this evening. First of all, I'm so sorry on the loss of your beloved sister. Grief is not a problem to be solved. A lot of us think of our sadness, think of our grief as something that we're supposed to do something about. Grief is the very natural, very beautiful response to losing someone who you loved so deeply. It's not a problem to be solved. There isn't anything you have to do. It will take its own course, and all you need to do is allow it. The only wrong way to do grief is to tell yourself, you should be over it by now. Move on. Chalo, rone band kar do, aage badhao. There's no right amount of time or wrong amount of time to grieve. What happens though is our sadness, our loss, makes other people quite uncomfortable because nobody wants to think about death. It's very easy to move through the world as we live it, feeling like we are invincible, it's never going to happen. I don't have to think about it. Well, agar aap mere samne hai, and you are in grief because you've lost someone, that makes me very uncomfortable because I don't want to think about death. So I'm going to tell you, Hare, it's okay, don't worry. Stop crying. Chalo movie mein chale. I want somehow to make you stop grieving so that I feel better in the moment. As a community, we really need to get over our own fear of death. It's going to happen. It's the only non-negotiable. It's the only guarantee. Whatever your stars are, whatever your horoscope is, however much money you make, whatever mantra you chant, whoever your guru is, whatever mandir you go to, whatever you do, you will die. And your loved ones will die. It is the only guarantee. And so first, as a community, we need to be able to support each other in grief without trying to put a lid on someone else's sadness because it makes us uncomfortable. And then all you need to do is allow yourself, allow the grief to take its own course, because what you'll realize is grief doesn't exist in a vacuum. If you're really honest and present and open with the emotions, what you'll find is there's a wave of grief. As you think about her, you mourn her. And then as her face is in your eyes, there's this wave of joy. Because you see her and you feel her and you remember her and you love her. And then maybe even there's a wave of laughter. Maybe there's something that seeing her makes you think of and you laugh. And then maybe there's a wave of anger. Why did God take her so soon? Why didn't she take better care of her health? Why didn't she wear her seatbelt? All of these sorts of very natural feelings when we've lost someone. And then it'll be a wave, again maybe of joy, again of grief. They actually just keep moving. And when you're open with them, you'll feel them Move from one end to the other. And all you have to do is be present. What's going to happen eventually is, it's not that you get over her. It's that your experience of who you are changes and expands to include her as well. And so you'll feel yourself changing and expanding. And that presence of her is now part of you. And this is the other really critical piece, because a lot of people will tell you, they're gone, just get over it. But if you close your eyes, you may be able to see her. You may be able to hear her inside. Not everyone can, that's okay. Many people can. At times maybe you can, at times you can't. But I would imagine that there are times where you can close your eyes and see her. Times you can be quiet and hear her. Times you feel her there. And that's beautiful. Because the truth is, her essence is still here. No, she can't sit next to you in the car on pilgrimage. No, you won't hear her voice necessarily in the way she spoke, or give her body a hug, sit across from her over a cup of tea or a meal. But ultimately, her essence is still here. What you loved was not her body. I mean, you may have also appreciated her body, but it wasn't that you loved her elbow, or you loved her knee, or you loved her leg, or her arm, or her nose, or her shoulder. You loved the essence of who she was. That soul, that spirit, that being. And actually that's still here. And it's also really important to allow ourselves to feel that, to know that that essence is still here with you. And as you go on pilgrimage, talk to her. That essence is still there. She's still with you, just in a different form. Since you were babies, each of you has changed form so many times. Right? What she looked like when you were a baby was very different from what she looked like at 10 or 20, 30, 40. But you loved her and you recognized her throughout all of these transformations. Well, she's just had another transformation. A form. Now it's one you can't see with these two eyes. But it doesn't mean she's gone. My favorite story about this is when Paramahansa Sri Ramakrishna Ji passed away, had Mahasamadhi. And his wife was just trying to remove the bangles that she wore. You know, when you become a widow, you're supposed to remove the bangles. But they had gotten married when she was very young, so her wrist was tiny. So now she couldn't get the bangles over her adult woman's hand. So she goes to take a hammer to break the bangles. And suddenly she hears his voice, "Sharda, what are you doing? I haven't gone anywhere. I've only moved from one room to another room." And so there's two things to do. One is just allow your grief. However it is, it's tears, it's joy, it's laughter, it's tears, it's joy, however it moves. It's solitude, it's wanting companionship. It's going to take a lot of different forms. It's going to hit you at all kinds of unexpected times and unexpected ways. A sight, a sound, a smell. And you just have to be present with it. Don't try to push it away. Just allow it. And simultaneously, the other to do is focus on feeling her in ways that are much more subtle than you've ever used. Focus on knowing her with ways of knowing that you're not used to using. Inner eyes, inner ears, inner ways of knowing. And not only will that bring her closer to you, but it'll also deepen your own experience of yourself. Of course. And if you're here tomorrow, we can also have a very beautiful puja for her here on the banks of Ganga. We can have them organize that afterwards. Yeah. Beautiful. Up. Dominic, Dominic ka sandesh? Okay. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your evening, everyone. Beautiful morning and day to all of our beautiful family joining us from all over the world. And look forward to seeing you all tomorrow.